Today you will become a Godot developer. In order to achieve this, we are going to be creating this prototype that will help you learn Godot in no time, in which the player can basically move around, jump and collect some coins. Indeed, it is simple, but you will learn a lot of things. More specifically, you will learn project setup in the Godot engine, the environment creation such as the background, the ground. Then you will also be able to learn the player movement, and finally also the collision with the coins. All these things are going to be helpful in order to create any other game in the Godot engine. Let's start. 1. Install Godot and set up project. Go to the official Godot website and then here basically click on download latest. The Godot website is basically godotengine.org. Or you can directly type Godot and it will appear right away. Once you are in this window, you are going to basically here click on the download button and you're going to wait a couple of seconds. As you can see, you're going to have here a zip file containing your Godot executable. Let's extract it using WinRAR or some similar software. And now we are going to be able to double click on this file over here that is the executable, because the other one is just a console. So we are going to open this file up and here we are going to be inside of the Godot engine. In order to create a project, go to the top left and then here in new project you're going to write there your project name and you're going to select the project path. You can go ahead and create a new folder there if you want, and then you will click create and edit. 2. Assets. Go ahead in the description down below, click the assets link and download these 4 assets. Basically the assets are the images that we are going to be using. Now let's extract them as well using WinRAR, and I will select them and drag and drop them into my Godot project. Let's right click over here and create a new folder that I will call assets and drag and drop again there our corresponding files. 3. Background. Let's start off our game by creating the background of it. So let's click here where it says to create a brand new 2D scene. I will call it main. I will click Ctrl S, or you can go to scene and save scene. I will create a new folder that I will call scenes, and here with capital M I will save my main scene. I am saving it with capital M to match the node name. And over here I will basically drag and drop my background asset over there. Okay, I will center it a little bit, and then here on the transform you're going to be able to actually scale in this object to something like this. Okay, then let's end up modifying its position a little bit. Something here for you to understand is that Godot uses nodes. Basically the nodes are the different objects that our game will contain, and there are a different type of nodes that you're going to be able to use depending on the exact usage that you want it to have. This is just a node 2D. This means that it literally has no functionality. It is just like some kind of wrapper. But here our background, as you can see, is a sprite, and basically sprites are mostly just used to render some images as we want to do with our background. 4. Ground. With our ground, not only do we want to render some texture as we are doing with our background with the sprites, but also then we want our player to be able to collide with the ground, okay, to interact somehow with the player. So that's why we're going to be using a static body 2D node that you're going to be adding. Basically you select the main node, click add, and you're going to be using static bodies. Okay, basically these are the objects that are not meant to be moved, that's why they are called statics, and they are bodies, so they are able to actually interact with the environment. Now let's add a sprite inside of it in order to render an image, and the image that we want to render is the ground. Okay, at the same time let's add a collision shape to in order to be able to actually collide with it. Now, first of all, let's make our sprite bigger. So here on the scale, I will give it something like 2.5 in both axes. And then I will also add here a corresponding collision shape. I will just add a rectangle because it will match my size, my shape actually quite good. So let me do this collision shape like this and like this, okay? The player will only be able to collide like on top of it, so you don't really need to have collision under, let's say, the ground. Once that you have this, let's rename this to ground, and having selected here the static node with the move tool, let's move it down to some place like here, okay? As you can see, it is a little bit blurry, okay? So let's go to our sprites and then here on texture, in filter, basically change it to nearest. This is because our ground, it is some kind of pixel art, and pixel art should always have this setting. Next, we have to create our player. Let's select our main node, and here I'm going to be adding the node called character body 2D. As the description says, this is a 2D physics body specialized for characters moved by scripts. So basically, this is going to provide us with some tools that will help us create the player movement much easily, okay? So let's click here create, and we're going to rename it to something like player. Once again, we will need a sprite inside of it to render some image, so I will basically use here my player. It is going to be looking blurry as well, so in the texture let's change its filter to nearest, and then also let's add a collision shape. I'm going to be adding a capsule this time, so I'm going to match here the size with the fit of it and make it maybe a little bit smaller like this. Let's select our sprites, and I will make it a little bit bigger, maybe something like 4 in a scale. So I will have to make my collision shape bigger as well, maybe to something like this and like this. And finally, let's select the player node and move it to the center of the screen to some place like here. To create this movement, here is when the magic comes about character bodies. We are going to attach a new script with this button. And here we can use the template of character body to the basic movement. We are going to create this script inside of a new scripts folder, just to keep things organized. And here, as you can see, we just have a template that will provide us with some platformer movement. Basically, the player is going to be able to move right, left, and it's also going to have gravity, and it's going to be able to jump. Let's quickly go over the code so that we understand at least something. We define a constant. This is basically a value that it's not going to change in runtime, so it's going to always be the same value. This is used, for example, for the speed, because the player will always have the same speed. Then we have the jump velocity. This will be like the jump force. You are going to be able to actually modify these values. And then we have here the gravity that then is going to be applied. Godot actually has a default gravity that is set here in project settings. And if you scroll down a little bit in physics 2D, here you have the default gravity that Godot provides. So this variable is going to grab that value. Then in the physics process function, this is a function that is called in order to handle physics. What we are checking here is that if the player isn't on the floor, we should apply gravity, okay? So this is that it happens in real life. If the player isn't touching the floor, then gravity is applied. Once that it reaches the floor, gravity no longer takes place. So here we are just adding the velocity in the y-axis. We are using here this gravity times delta. Delta will basically make sure that in different time frames, frame rates, we are always moving at the same speed. It is a little bit more complex, so we are just going to leave it like that. Then in order to handle the jump, what we are going to be doing is checking if we are pressing the UI accept action and we are on floor. UI accept means that if we are pressing the spacebar or the enter in our keyboard, okay? And then it's on floor, we are only going to be able to jump if we are on the floor. If we are flying, if we aren't actually touching here the floor, we are not going to be able to jump, because if not, we would be like flying. And basically here with these lines of code, what we are doing is the left and right movement. Let's here run the project. This is going to ask you to select your main scene. Basically the main scene is the one that is going to be played as soon as we enter the game. We only have one scene, so let's select the current one. And now with the 2 arrows of our keyboard, we are going to be able to move, and with the spacebar or the enter key of our keyboard, we are going to be able to jump, okay? And if you actually spam the jump, as you can see, you are only going to be able to jump if you are on floor. Now, as you can see, this has some problems with the velocity and also has some problems with the gravity, okay? Because we aren't jumping so high. So let's fix this. First of all, let's apply a little bit more gravity. So let's go to project settings, and here on the 2D physics, let's change the default gravity to something like 1200, okay? Then in the script of the player, the speed, and I think that it is okay, but the jump velocity, it doesn't jump so high, so I will modify to something like minus 750. And you may be thinking, why the jump velocity negative if we are moving up? And the thing is that in Godot, let's check here the axis. If we move our player up, we are actually decreasing the Y position, okay? So that's why the jump velocity is negative. Now when we play again, we are going to see like a different result, but the core of it is the exact same one. We basically modified some variables. Let's end up by creating the coins for our game. Let's select our main node, and here we'll add an area 2D. This node, what we'll create is an area that is going to be able to collide with other things. Basically, we're going to be able to detect the collisions between this area, meaning the coin with the player. Let's rename it to something like coin. And once again, I will add a brand new sprite, and I will add a collision shape. In the sprite, I'm going to be using the coin sprite. It's going to be blurry, so in texture, let me change it accordingly. Then let's make it bigger, so let's change its scale to something like 3. And here in the collision shape, I will just assign a new circle and make it bigger like this. I'm going to make it actually a little bit bigger so that they are easier to collect for the player. Now that I have this, what I'm going to do is to attach a brand new script that I will save in the corresponding scripts folder. And now that I have this, what I will do is here on the nodes tab, this has some signals, okay? So here signals will allow us to detect when this coin, that this is an area, is going to be colliding with other area or with other body. Remember that this player node is actually a character body, okay? So here the signal is going to be body something. So in this case, we want to detect body entered. And we're going to connect it to our coin. Now we have here this body parameter that is basically the body with which this is colliding. And we have to detect if the coin is colliding with the player, because actually the coin, I don't know, could collide with the background, even with the ground. So we have to make sure that the object with which we are colliding is the player. And to do this, it is quite simple. We are just going to write a condition. If body.name is equal to player, that is basically this name over here, it means that we are colliding with the player. If that is the case, we are going to destroy ourselves. That is what Q3 does. Now let's also move this coin to some place like here, for example. And now when we play, we can actually collect this coin. Finally, what you can do is to save this as a complete new scene. So let me right click on it, save branch as scene, and here let's save it into the scenes folder with capital C to match the node name. So now what you are going to be able to do is to have a brand new scene, and any change that you do in this scene will take effect in this one. And the cool thing about this is that you can have as many coins as you want. Basically, you're going to have some copies that I'm going to put over here. And then you say, let's say that you want to have bigger coins, you can go here to the scene and make the sprite bigger. So you can give it, I don't know, a size of 5, save the changes with Ctrl S, and you can come back here, and as you can see, coins are now bigger. So that is an advantage of having different scenes. Now we have here our coins, and we are going to be able to collect them. Well, actually this one no, because it is super high up. Finally, let's select all these nodes. I'm going to click in this one, hold down shift and click on this one to select everything, and I'm going to reparent them to a brand new 2D node, so that I have like a wrapper that I will call coins, okay? And like this, they are going to be all inside the same node. So this is all for today's video. I hope that it was helpful. If you want to know more tutorials about Godot, because this game can actually be taken further, we can be adding more player animations, animations in the coins, particles, and lots of other interesting stuff. So if you really want to see a part 2 of this tutorial, let me know in the comments down below. See you in the next one, and bye bye.